walking on eggshells, that became my daily reality with my 17-year-old stepson, Jake. Every day felt like navigating a minefield of unspoken tension right inside my own home, the one I shared with him and his father, my husband, Robert. Have you ever felt like an outsider in your own family, struggling to connect with someone you desperately want to reach? Stick with me because this journey was anything but easy. Make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell. You'll want to see how this unfolds. We've been married 2 years, Robert and I. Our bond was strong, but blending our lives, especially with Jake living with us since day one, was proving harder than I'd ever imagined. I loved Robert deeply, but the distance I felt from Jake was a constant ache. He was quiet, withdrawn, wrapped in a teenage silence that felt impenetrable. At first, I told myself it was normal awkwardness, that time would bridge the gap. After all, I wasn't his mom, but months bled into a year, then 2, and the emotional disconnect only deepened. Robert worried about Jake becoming more distant, but nothing I tried seemed to work. Initiating conversations? Met with shrugs. Offering advice? Ignored. Suggesting activities? Dismissed. Frustration gnawed at me. Was it me? Was I doing something wrong? Living under the same roof yet barely exchanging more than a few words a day created a profound sense of isolation. It's a lonely feeling, isn't it, trying so hard and hitting a wall? Give this video a like if you've ever felt that kind of frustration in a relationship. I'd hoped time would magically fix things, but it didn't. I slowly began to realize that while I thought I was respecting Jake's space, maybe I was actually avoiding the real issue, the depth of his own emotional struggle. It hit me then. I'd been so focused on the awkwardness, I hadn't truly considered his grief. His mother was gone, and I'd never fully acknowledged how devastating that must still be for him. He wasn't just a moody teenager, he was a young man navigating a world shattered by loss, trying to find his place in a family that now included me. The wall between us wasn't just discomfort, it was built on his pain and my failure to truly see it. I'd assumed distance was the answer, waiting for him to open up. But maybe I needed to be the one to make the first real move, not with forced activities, but with genuine empathy. I needed to stop seeing him just as Robert's quiet son and see him, the grieving young man, beneath the surface. I needed to offer compassion without expecting anything back. The realization was stark. I had never truly allowed myself to connect with him emotionally. It was time to change my approach. It was time for me to make the effort. It happened on a quiet afternoon. I came home early from errands, not expecting anyone. Robert had said Jake was out with friends. But there he was, slumped on the living room couch, head buried in his hands. My heart clenched. Seeing him so vulnerable, so unlike his usual guarded self, I couldn't just walk past. Hesitantly, I sat down in the armchair across from him, leaving space, offering silence first. He looked up, startled, his eyes filled with a pain he quickly tried to hide, gaze dropping, a frustrated sigh escaping him. He clearly didn't want to be seen like this. But I wasn't going to pretend anymore. This wasn't about fixing things, it was simply about being present. "Jake," I said softly, keeping my voice gentle, "you don't have to talk about it if you don't want to. But I'm here." His shoulders tensed, and for a second I thought he'd retreat into his shell again. But then, almost imperceptibly, he nodded. The silence stretched, thick with unspoken feelings, but strangely not uncomfortable. It felt like a shared breath, a moment of ceasefire. Slowly, tentatively, Jake lifted his head. "I don't know what's wrong with me," he muttered, his voice low, laced with a confusion that tore at me. "I can't focus. It's like nothing matters anymore." The words were choked, hesitant, revealing feelings he'd obviously kept locked down tight for so long. The pain behind them was palpable. He was finally admitting, maybe even just to himself, that he was breaking. I listened, just listened, letting him speak without interruption. I could see the struggle it took for him to voice these things. "I know it's been hard," I said carefully when he fell silent, choosing my words deliberately, "with your mom gone. But you don't have to carry it all alone, Jake." I meant it with every fiber of my being. I didn't want to be the awkward stepmother anymore, I just wanted to be someone who cared. He seemed to wrestle with my words, his eyes darting around as if seeking escape. Then, after a long moment, his gaze met mine again, a fraction softer this time. "I didn't think you'd want to hear it," he admitted quietly. "I don't know how to talk about this stuff." "I get it," I replied, offering a small, understanding smile. "But sometimes just saying it out loud makes it feel a little less heavy. I'm here for you, Jake, no matter what." A long pause hung in the air. Then, to my astonishment, he gave another tiny nod. It wasn't a floodgate opening, not a sudden outpouring, but it was something. A crack in the wall. A flicker of trust. He didn't pull away. He let me in just a little. Those small moments, those tiny shifts can feel monumental, can't they? What do you think is the most important thing when trying to reach someone who's closed off? Share your thoughts below. And if you're invested in Jake's and my journey, please subscribe. We've still got a way to go. That small moment felt like the fragile beginning of a real connection. Over the following weeks, things subtly shifted. It wasn't dramatic, but the oppressive silence eased. I noticed him more, lingering nearby in the mornings, offering a quiet hey that felt genuine. These tiny fragments, pieced together, started forming something new. I checked in regularly, casually asking about his day, offering help without pushing, just letting him know the door was open. I respected his space, letting him set the pace. One evening, Robert was working late again. Jake and I found ourselves alone in the living room, him scrolling on his phone, me reading. The quiet felt comfortable now. Suddenly, he put his phone down, a rare event. He stared into space for a moment. "You've been quieter than usual," I observed gently, closing my book. "Everything okay?" He hesitated, then sighed, a deep, weary sound. "It's just, sometimes I don't know where I fit in anymore," he said, his voice low. "Since Mom, everything feels so different. And with you and Dad, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I'm in the way." My heart ached for him. Just a teenager carrying such a heavy burden. "I get it," I said softly but firmly. "I can't imagine how hard it's been. But Jake, you are not in the way. You belong here. You're not alone in this." He looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw that flicker of hope again. "I don't know if I've ever really believed that," he admitted almost shyly. "You and Dad seem so happy and I feel like I'm messing things up." I took a breath. "You're not messing anything up, Jake. Things change, people need time. We're a family now, that means working through the tough stuff together. We've got each other. That's not going to change." He absorbed my words, the tension in his shoulders easing slightly. The walls weren't gone, but they were definitely lower. We were communicating, connecting in small, vital ways. It wasn't about me being a perfect stepmom, it was about being someone he could slowly, tentatively begin to trust. The following weeks brought more small victories. No dramatic breakthroughs, just subtle shifts. An offer to help with groceries. A shared half-smile in the hallway. Tiny signs, but real. One afternoon, I found him sketching at the dining table. His art was his private world. Taking a chance, I asked casually, "Hey, Jake, what are you working on?" He looked up, surprised, but didn't shut down. He actually held up the notebook. A detailed, intricate cityscape stared back at me. "That's impressive," I said honestly. "You've got real talent." He shrugged, deflecting the praise, but I saw the flicker of pride. Finding that one point of connection can make all the difference, right? Like this video if you appreciate these small moments of connection. We talked about his art, light conversation, but with an underlying connection I hadn't felt before. Later that evening, he approached me asking if I wanted to see more sketches. It felt huge. We spent the next hour looking through his work, talking about drawing, places, the feelings behind the art. It wasn't deep therapy, but it was us sharing something real, building a bond through his passion. I realized then, this connection couldn't be forced. It was being built slowly, steadily, in these small moments. What mattered was that we were both trying. The distance felt smaller now, manageable. It wasn't about fixing him or making him accept me. It was about understanding, patience, and showing up. Where do you think this relationship will go? Can they build a truly strong family bond? Let me know your predictions. Give us one last like, and make sure you're subscribed to follow our story. Whatever the future held, we would face it together, one small, hopeful step at a time.